Hi, it's Will from StormTheCastle.com, and this is part 5 of the Sculpting Fantasy Miniatures tutorial. And we're going to start here. We're going to start to actually get into some detail work, and we're going to learn a few things. And this goes, I'm going to go a bit in depth with this. Let me go over the materials you're going to need to do this. The goal here is to make a 3-inch miniature. The last one we made was 6 inches. Now we've halved that. We're going down to 3 inches. And by doing this, it's important that if you want to learn how to make miniatures, you don't just go straight to the 25 or 28 millimeter miniatures. You got to work your way down because you got to get a feel for the product and how to sculpt and how to work with the materials and stuff like that. So we started with a 6-inch to give us an idea of what was going on. Now we're going to work with the 3-inch, and in this case, I'm going to be able to give you some nice tips on how to make nice miniatures. We're going to do layering. We're going to add layering of clothing, and we're going to take a little bit of an adventurous look at posing and stuff like that. Okay, so let me go over the materials here. We've got a bunch of little hand tools. Dental picks work really great for this. We've got all kinds of little, some little sculpting tools, tweezers, an X-Acto knife, and the little tool we made with a pin. You probably want to make several of these. I don't know if you can see that there's a pin in there, and that comes in handy. Magnifying glasses, some little screwdrivers, soldering pencil, variety of solder, a variety of hand tools, particularly needle nose pliers and side cutters, and we're going to use Super Sculpt Firm for this. That's a really nice sculpting compound, gives you some really good detail. It isn't good enough for the tiniest miniatures, but it'll be great for a 3-inch miniature like we're going to make in this tutorial. Also, sketch pad and pencils. Okay, the first thing you do, and we've talked about this before, is you start doing yourself out some sketches. What do you want your miniature to look like? And that's what I started doing. I started drawing out some sketches, and I kept them to scale. This is 3 inches, and that's the size we're going to do. You can make them larger if you want. So I was fiddling around trying to get different poses until I found something I liked, and I liked this one right here. So I started experimenting with this. I like this sort of like a barbarian with a two-handed sword he's holding in one hand off to the side there. So I decided that was the one I'm going to go with, so that's what we're going to make in this tutorial. So, now the process of doing the drawing is the same as the process as doing the sculpting. Okay, there's basically 4 steps that we take in the drawing, and roughly 4 steps that we take in the actual sculpting. So you see, here's the first step. We just did a wireframe, and remember your rules of 8. A normal human being is about 8 heads high. So I divided this 3-inch section up into 8 parts. The head's the top 8th. Then it's 2/8 for the chest, 1/8 for the torso, the pelvis, 2/8 for the thighs, and another 2/8 for the ankles and calves and feet. So that's roughly how you can keep the shape good. So the first step you do is you draw out your wireframe, just to get an idea of the pose. And that was the pose that we found. That's what we wanted, so that's what I did. From there, you draw your circles just to flesh it out. See, so I draw circles. Chest, pelvis, thighs, calves, head, just to try to get a sense for what we're doing here. And a little bit of the sword. Now I started to work on the musculature. Now we're going to take this and we're going to start to sculpt musculature out of this. So here we go. We got our muscles. We got starting to get some definition there. And then after that, we'll just put some clothes on this guy. So there you go. So that's the completed drawing, and that's the sculpture. That's the miniature we're going to make. It's kind of like a Viking. He's got his little shirt there and his horns, and he's got his like boots with the fur on him, and his two-handed sword there is a big sword, and I kept it transparent so we could see the legs. So we draw it that way, and then we sculpt it that way. So you make your armature, you add your clay, then you form your clay into the sculpture of a body, and then you add your clothing or detail your clothing and whatnot. So and you get detail. So it starts with an armature, just flesh it out, and then get re-detailed. So approximately 4 steps. So I've already made the armature. Let me show you what that looks like. So there you go. You can take a look at that and see how it is. So the armature is ready to go. I soldered it. Now the thing that's different about this one is the first one we made was very compact with very few problem areas. This one's going to have some challenges for us in that the legs are apart, so we'll have to sculpt the legs separate. The sword, of course, is a little extra thing, but it will actually add some strength to it because it'll make it a 3-point. This arm is out, and we're going to add some things to this. This arm is posed. You don't have to solder your armature. I did because this one's kind of complex and it's big enough to solder. So next we're going to start adding the clay, and that'll be step 2. So we just start to flesh it out. And what I like to do is start working my way from the bottom and working my way slowly up. Okay, I'm set up here, and now we're ready to start adding clay to our armature. And we're going to be doing, first off, we're going to be doing the second part here, where we're just going to bulk things out and add clay so we get a rough shape. That'll be the second part. And I wanted to talk, while I'm doing this, I wanted to talk a little bit about Super Sculpt. You can see here I have a glass sheet that I use for Super Sculpt. When you're using Sculpt, it's great stuff, but make sure your hands are nice and clean, and make sure you have some kind of a surface to work on here. Glass works well, aluminum foil works well, wax paper, but this can stain various fabrics, so you don't want to get it on a rug or on the furniture. You want to keep it controlled on a surface that you have. So you break yourself off a piece of Super Sculpt, a small, very small piece, and start kneading it until it's nice and soft and workable, and then you apply it to your armature. Super Sculpt, if you don't know, is really nice. You can get really fine detail out of it, and once you're done, you can actually bake it in the oven, and then once it cools, it hardens. And once it's hardened, it's like a regular miniature. You can glaze it. You can paint it. You can coat it with a glaze for protecting it, and then paint it. It's really nice. So it's a nice product. It's non-toxic, but it does stain things. So you got to make sure you keep it off your furniture and your rug and whatnot. So okay, I've cut myself off some pieces of Super Sculpt, and I've kneaded them down, get them nice and soft. I have a bunch of pieces here. You got to take your time with this and knead these. And one more thing about Super Sculpt I wanted to say is that if you're going to bake it in the oven, you have to make sure no part of your miniature is thicker than about a ½ inch, because it won't bake correctly. What people do often, if they're making something bigger, is that they use aluminum foil to build up the structure. So you'll put crumpled aluminum foil in there, and then you put the Super Sculpt over it, and that's how they do that if you're going to make something bigger. So about ½ inch is actually the limit of Super Sculpt when you want to bake it. For now we're just doing step 2, where we're just going to build up the shape of the miniature, and for a while, piece by piece. But you get a sense of what. Okay, this thing is starting to take shape now. I've got most of it filled in, and we're almost done with step 2 of filling in the body. From here we're going to have to start adding clay, taking away some clay. We're going to start using our tools to sculpt it into the musculature, and then once the musculature is done, then we will add the clothes and the ornaments, the belt, the boots, the helmet, and stuff like that. So this takes some time. I think I'm going to have to check the time, but I think this is probably all I can fit in 10 minutes in one video. So this is probably the end of part 5. I may take this. I put the sword in. I said I wasn't going to put the sword in, but I put the sword in just so you could get a look at it. I may take that back out so I can work on the figure for a while and get that right, and then I'll add the sword in later. We'll have to see how it goes. So stay tuned. I'm going to continue working on this, but I'm going to break this up into the next tutorial. So hang in there, get yourself some Super Sculpt, and start experimenting with it and sculpting with it. Okay, here, let's take a look.